Right, we'll try that again. Better than never. Technical issues for a change. Right, so I'm hoping this is working. If not, if nobody watches it live, just watch the replay, and we just won't have any questions to answer. Simple as that. But hopefully, we'll get a few people joining us as we move along. So, the idea behind this live stream is, and I'll go over this again if people ask questions or want to know stuff as we do it. The whole point behind it is for me to really just kind of like do an in-depth thing through my studio, which is here. The delightful stuff behind. So down that other end, there's a couple of drum kits. That's where I teach drums. That's kind of like my main line of work is a drum teacher, but then I do all the music tech stuff and other music things as well. So what I've got is more for my sanity than anything else. I've done lovely little printouts. Look. That's probably going to be backwards, the way I've done it. Hi Rob, you alright dude? Nice to see you, thanks for joining us. What I'll do is if people want a copy of these, how my MIDI routing is going, I'll quite happily just put a link to like Google Drive for these, just like PDF files, so you can kind of see how everything works and is put together. So we're going to start off with the MIDI connections first of all, and I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible, but it's going to get complicated. I just know it. Right, let's switch over to that camera. And sort the microphone out. So, basically the deluge is the centre of everything. In fact, what we'll do actually before I do that, let's just kind of go through, where's my screen? That one. We'll go through what we've got. So, over on this side, the only thing I'm really using over here is the System 8, which is this one here. Above that is an old Yamaha keyboard, which is actually quite nice for piano sort of sounds. Okay, we've got a few people watching. Hi Colin, nice to see you. Andreas, thanks for joining us. So yeah, over there, that's just like a Yamaha dodgy keyboard thing. This, which I don't use very often, but if I want like cheesy, back in the days when Roland did Eddie roll stuff, so that's going back a long way. Again, that kind of just sits there gathering dust. Here, we've got a Novation launch key, just another MIDI controller. Again, that generally just sort of sits there gathering dust mostly. So the main thing over on this side is the System 8. Coming into the centre, obviously got the laptop here. We've got Ableton Push, so that's what I use when I'm doing everything with Ableton on the laptop, sort of recording and mixing. Got the old mixing desk thing here. This is an old Yamaha MD8. It's actually a mini disc recorder, for those of you who remember mini discs. I used to love mini discs back in the day. Basically, it's a 12-channel mixer. I'll explain how everything is going through that when we get onto that bit. You can record on to an 8-track mini disc as well, but it's a pain in the arse getting stuff off it, so I don't use it for recording. It's just used for routing and mixing. I'll go through all of that in a sec. And then over on this side, we've got a microbrute, we've got a mini log, we've got the deluge, we've got the modular I've got a big gap there that always annoys me on the modular here, so I've just filled that at the moment with the TB-03 because it sits quite nicely in there. And actually you can use the TB-03, it's got CV and get out, so you can use that for doing stuff as well. Deluge we've talked about. This I've not really got around to going on yet. This is like a little granular synthesizer thing that somebody made for me recently, which I need to sort out and have a go on. We've got an Arturia, whatever that is, Mini Lab. Got an iPad, again, which I'll explain this is more for live stuff. We've got, let's go back. Don't know if you can see on that one or not. Got an MS-20 there. Sitting on top of the MS-20 is an MB-33 with some effects pedals chained in there. I've got a delay, a distortion, and a reverb, and they're just used for the not the MS-20, the MB-33. And then all the way over here, I've got another little Behringer Xenix mixer. That's kind of like my sub mixer, which is going into here. All of which will be explained in due course. So let's start over here with my lovely notes. And if anyone's got any questions, then just stick them in the comments, and I will answer them as we go through. Sorry about the noise. I've got a droopy. Oh my bloody hell! Hold on, microphone issues. There we go. Right. So let's just start on the deluge. I'm going to just go with a new track just so you can see what's happening. So in terms of MIDI connections, the MIDI in, okay, which is this one here, is just coming from, I don't know if you can see here, okay, I've got these Yamaha drum pads. So I've got the MIDI out from there, going to the MIDI in of the deluge. They are basically used for live stuff. So they will be used for triggering sometimes samples, sometimes loops, sometimes drumming when I do live drumming. Okay, so it's just straightforward MIDI out from there, MIDI into there, and MIDI mapping goes off with those. So in terms of the... Hi, Inky. Thanks for joining. Right, so MIDI out. This is where it starts to get complicated. Let's just go through the MIDI channels first. I don't know if you can see that. I'll hold it up to the camera a little bit. So, MS-20 is on MIDI channel 1. MIDI channel 2 as a synth. So let's just... I'll play these as I go through. Okay, so you can kind of hear what's happening. So, put the deluge into MIDI. And this will be where nothing bloody works. That's it. I remembered. Sorry about that lovely noise. Right on. Let's see what we've got in the comments before I go on. Okay. Okay. Thanks for watching, people. Yeah. So MIDI channel 1 is playing the MS-20. So just to prove that, I will play it. Okay. Channel 2, I've got set up playing a synth on the iPad over here. So that's that. Channel 3 is the TB-03. So that's the modular. I've also got, so that's kind of controlling the standard sort of oscillators. I'm just going to turn the MS-20 down because I'm getting some horrible noise on that channel. So yeah, in the modular I've got two things. I've got a MIDI to CV converter, which is doing that one. I've also then, which is controlling the oscillators and everything else. I've also then got this tiny little module here, which is called Pluck, which is very, very nice. You've got to be careful how you say that. Which I've got that controlled by CV. And that's that sound. So if I just go over onto the CV channel, that's that. And there's a little mixer down here. So that's the Pluck, and then that's the main oscillators. And right, so I've got a question from Andreas. How do you route the sound through the deluge or the mixer? All the sound, let's go back over to that camera, is going through the mixer. So I'll go in quite a lot of detail with how the sound works shortly. So I'll go through all the MIDI connections, and then I'll do all the audio stuff, and hopefully it'll make sense when we get onto that. Where's my screen on that one? So just quickly going through the others. MIDI channel 5 is the mini log. MIDI channel 6 is the System 8 over there. MIDI channel 7 is the acidy thing on the iPad. So that's triggering and playing another iPad app. 8 is the micro brute. 9 is the drums on here as well. I've got a drum thing on there. 10 is I've got an Uno drum over here, which I forgot to mention actually previously. Let's go back to that. I don't know if you can see it. I was hoping to get another camera over this side so you could see it, but technical issues beat me on that. Over here, which I forgot to say as well, we've got an Uno drum and an Uno synth. So channel 10 is playing the Uno drum, which clips just about here there. Channel 11 is doing the Uno synth. Channel 12 is doing the Synthmaster 1, again another iPad. Well, that's fat. So that's the iPad playing. I mean, you can't fault the flipping synths on the iPad, they're flipping awesome. And then the last one, channel 13 is the MB33, which is up here. Okay, so that basically means I can sequence any piece of hardware purely just from the Deluge. So I've got control of everything from here. So that's the MIDI channels. So in terms of hold on, another question is yeah, basically if you've got any more than like a couple of bits of hardware, Andreas, yes, you are going to need a mixer. I've got like a sub mixer and the main mixer. So this is my MIDI routing, okay, and I'll put these, like I say, I'll make these available to people if they want them. So what I've got is I've got an out column and an in column. So at the top, as we mentioned previously, coming out of the DTX drum pads is just going into the Deluge. So the first out of the Deluge, which is, if I can try and put that there, I don't know if you can see, is I've got like two things. So I've got basically a few MIDI splitters that I'm using. And if I show you the ones I'm using, let's get that screen up. Okay, it's basically this kind of thing. So it's just like one standard MIDI connector there, a male one, and you've got two female ones there. So this is what, about £4 or £5 off eBay, and they work really, really well. So it basically gives you two outputs from your MIDI each time. Okay, so that's what I'm using there. So what's happening is I've got the output from the Deluge going into a MIDI splitter. One of those is going out over to the Uno drum. It would help if you could see what I was talking about. Got that? Yep. So one of those is going over to the MIDI drum. Sorry, the Uno drum, and the other one is going to the Uno synth. Now the Unos both have MIDI through, which is brilliant because it means you can pass stuff through and it doesn't kind of stop the end of the chain. If everything had MIDI through, life would be a lot easier and I wouldn't have to use as many MIDI splitters, but they don't. I've also got then, sorry, start again, I'm going wrong on that. The splitter from the Deluge, one is going to the Uno drum and one is going to the UM1, which is this thing here. So this is my MIDI USB interface thing, and the UM1 is then going into the iPad. So that's how I'm getting MIDI into the iPad. Okay, so if we kind of follow the chain along, that's the end of one of those, the end of the chains coming out of the Deluge. So we're splitting off to there, going to the iPad, we're going to the Uno drum. The output, the MIDI out from the Uno drum, is going to the input of the TB03, and then the TB03 has got another splitter cable coming out of that. One of which is going to the modular, and the second one which is going to a little MIDI hub, which if I show you over here, I've got, get that one up, which is this kind of thing. This one's actually got 8, it's basically it's like a MIDI through hub thing. The one I've got's got 5 on it, so you put one MIDI in and it will pass everything through and send it off in 5 different directions. And I paid actually the same price for that as you can get for this. So for £25 you can get basically an 8-way MIDI through splitter, and it looks like that. Okay, it's not a fancy design, but it does the job very nicely. Okay, so we've got TB03 going into the MIDI hub. Coming out of the MIDI hub then, I've got one MIDI connection going to the System 8, one to the Minilog, one to the Micro Brute, one to the MB33, and one to the Uno synth. So I could actually take another output from the Uno synth and it would, because that's got MIDI through, so that would do its thing there. And then from the System 8, which is over that end, which we saw earlier, I've got another splitter cable coming out of that, one going to the MS-20 and one going into that Yamaha synth that we talked about earlier. So that is basically all the MIDI routing. So it's just a combination of MIDI through and splitter cables, basically. So that's pretty much the MIDI. So, audio. What's happening here is all the audio connections, basically just straightforward audio jack cables going out. So if we go over and you can just about see, I think you're on there. I'm not using channel 1 on the mixer because the fade is a bit dodgy, so I tend not to use that because it goes a bit weird. So channel 2 is basically taking the audio from the MS-20, which is over there, into there. Channel 3's got the mini log going into there. Channel 4 is an output from the Deluge, just taking the left mono out. Okay, so that's going into there. Channel 5 is the micro brute. Channel 6 is the System 8, so I get my numbers mixed up. Channel 7 is a mix from the sub mixer, which is this thing over here. I'll just pull my headphone socket out, which I do so many times. So that's kind of like a mix of the sub mix. I'll go through what's in there in a sec. And then channel 8 is my mic, so that's just going in through this desk on there. On 9 and 10, which are up here, 9 and 10 is the stereo mix from, I've got a little sound card down here, I've got a little 4-channel sound card, which is what I use for recording into Ableton Live, so that's going into 9 and 10. Then 11 and 12 is a stereo return from the Alesis little nano verb thing down here, because I've got an auxiliary send on here, so I can just send any of the hardware basically out into the reverb. So that's the inputs. I told you it was confusing. I mean, this setup is just ridiculously complicated. I'm sure it could be easier, but it kind of, I've got it so everything works. Right. This mixer has outputs on the back. So what I've got is I've got 4 subgroups here. So the outputs from those, 1, 2, 3, and 4, are going to the 4 inputs on my audio interface, which is just tucked down here, which I don't want to move in case it just stops working. That enables me to be able to record 4 different pieces of audio at the same time, which I'll go through in a sec. So there's those 4 outputs. We've got the auxiliary send 1 output is going, as we said previously, to Alesis. Got little Alesis nano verb down here. So just if I want to send a bit of something for a bit of reverb and that kind of thing. We've got the monitor output from here is going to my studio monitors, which are down here, which you probably can't see. And then I've got a stereo output going to another sound card down here. So that's basically the what I use then for just really for streaming, for what I'm doing now. So that's capturing all the audio for streaming through there. So that's not really a studio thing, that's more of a streaming thing. Like I say, we've got these groups which we'll go through in a sec. The Uno synth going into channel 4, and the MB33 going into channel 5, and the TB03, which is over here, is actually going into the mixer on the modular, because I've run out of cables for that. So that's why that is going in there. Which we've covered that. Right. So let's just kind of have a mess about with Ableton Live, so I can show you what I'm doing on here. So what I'm doing in Ableton is I'm using the ASIO drivers, however you pronounce it, using ASIO for All version 2. And then basically I've just got I used this I picked this up last week or the week before, which is quite cheap. It's about 80 quid just for a 4-channel audio interface, which was pretty cheap. They are my settings on there, and then I've got all my inputs activated there. It does a weird number of inputs kind of randomly, and then just like a very basic stereo output. So let's say on channel 1 here, I want to record the System 8 into 1. Okay, now at the moment, if you look at how that's, you can see where the signal's coming through. It's going into 1 and 2, so we can have a stereo or a mono. So if I want to record in stereo, I would just activate that. Let's just record a bit. Which is recorded. The signal's very quiet, but let's turn it up a little bit. Okay, so hopefully you can see that going in there. If I want to record in mono, all I would do is choose, say, 1. Okay, so that way it means I can actually have, if I'm recording in mono, I can have 4 separate tracks. So let's just do something random here. Let's just rename them so I can show you what I'm doing. And for some reason I've got a horrible crackle on my System 8 channel, which I will get rid of. So let's say we want to record, and I'll do something random on the Deluge. Right, so we're going to have Deluge on channel 2. We'll have the mini log on 3, and I don't know, let's have the modular on 4. So what I would do is, for recording like that, I'm going to have the System 8 going in on 1, the Deluge on 2, the mini log on 3, and the modular on 4. So System 8, let's just activate all the records. Okay. Now at the moment, as I play the System 8, you'll see it's coming through on channel 1 and channel 2. So what I need to do is, over on the mixer here, I've got to send these to the groups, which I won't go into great detail about how this mixer works, but basically if I just pan that across that side and now play the System 8. Okay, it's coming out. Oh, you're probably only hearing that out one side of your headphones. I need to turn the monitoring on. Anyway, it doesn't matter if it comes out one side of your headphones. Right, so but anyway, you can see that is now just coming out of channel 1. So for the Deluge, I would just pan that over the other way. So the Deluge track, I would pan over to there. The mini log is going to be on 3 and 4. So for some reason I'm not getting any signal from, and I don't know why. But anyway, we'll do the first 2 tracks to start off with. Actually, no, it should work. Right, that's the micro brute. Oh, I know why I've got the tracks channels wrong, because randomly it's channel 5 is 3, and I think it's channel 6. Need to do the routing all of that. Yeah, that's on 6. There we go. So System 8, mini log, microboot. So if I just I'll get a little random sequence going on our friend the Deluge. So I'll start with drums. So we'll record the drums on one track. So let's just stick an 808 in there. Okay, so if we go back over that screen, we can see that coming in just through there on channel 2. Hopefully you can see that coming through there. So if we go to another track, and we'll have this on MIDI channel 6, which is going to give us the System 8, and we'll just I'll just get a different sound on this System 8, so I'll just whatever random. Okay, we've put another channel in, another track in I should say, and we're going to go to MIDI channel 5, which is the mini log. Okay, so I was going to put like one note in that. That's fine. And then we've got the micro brute, which is on 8. Yep. Wrong thing. Okay, so if I just record all of this and then I will, let's bring stuff in and out using the feeders. I'll do it off here. So let's bring everything down. I'm going to start with the drums, and then I'll bring stuff in, and then I can mess about and record live parameter changes on the synths and so on. So I'll just record that from the push. So from the beginning, so if we start the deluge, we'll get the drums. Okay, so you can see they're now being recorded onto here. So if I want to bring in, say, the System 8 first, I'm just going to bring that up on the fader. Bring the mini log in. And then the micro brute. And so on. Okay, so then we've got all that recorded. Obviously I just needed a bit of work on my levels, but we can then play that back. And that's basically how I would record. If I want to record more than one thing at a time, I would do it like this. And so on, so here's the mini log coming in and my awesome, great song that I've just made up, which is fantastic. Not. Okay, so there's the mini log and so on. Okay, so that is how, if I want to record more than one thing at a time, that is how I would do it if it's all sequenced. And obviously that's a quicker way of doing it than recording tracks individually. But if I want to do it in stereo, I can record 2 stereo tracks or 4 mono tracks. Doesn't really make a lot of difference, I don't think, to me. Which way around to do it. And yeah, it's like I used to have the MX1, which I regret selling last year because that was like an 8-track thing and I could record 8 tracks at one go. But yes, needed some cash last year, so that had to go, unfortunately. But I do kind of regret selling that. So that's basically how everything works. It's one of those things where you might want to like watch it back a few times. For it to make sense, but I think that's pretty much covered everything. I'll do a little bit about how I play live as well, but if anyone's got any questions in the meantime, then now is the time to ask them. But if not, I'll talk about how I play live. So pulling cables out left, right and centre here. There we go, I can hear myself now. Yeah, I used to have this thing of when I'm playing live of wanting to take loads of gear out with me, and then kind of realising that taking a load of gear out with you is a pain in the arse, and keep it as simple as you can. So what I do for playing live is I've got this this is basically a guitar pedal case. And I've got just like the deluge and the power bank in here. That's just resting there at the moment. That doesn't normally go out with me. That's just basically velcroed down, so it doesn't fly about all over the place when I put the lid on. in terms of other stuff that I take, again, I used to take the TB-03 out with me, and sometimes I do. I kind of change between that and the iPad. If I'm not taking the TB-03 with me, I will take the iPad. The great thing with the iPad is you can have like more than one synth in it and just take out one bit of gear. So what on the iPad, I don't know if you'll be able to see or not on the screen, but I'm using the AUM app, whatever, which you can build your own sort of little virtual mixing console on there. So on there, I've got the Audio Kit Synth 1, Pure Acid, which is what I use for the 303 sounds, and then I've got the Synth Master 1. So I've got some different synth options on there. And then basically I take that, this, and the Mini Lab with me, which is actually quite a new addition. I've not actually played out with this yet. I did used to use a different MIDI controller, but I use that. And that is mapped to control the stuff on the iPad, which I will kind of explain in a second. So let's just load up a track. Okay, so for example, this one. Which starts like that. So for a track like this, sometimes I will do drumming. Sometimes it will be just kind of like messing about with stuff on here. So for example, on this one, when I press this button here, I've got this set to launch this scene. So if you look what happens when I press this, it's going to launch that scene. And then the next one, so I've got these two on the blue setting. When I press the second button here, so if I press that, you can see 1 is going to launch the pink scene, 2 is going to launch the blue scene. So that kind of gives me options to start with. So let's just play the first bit of this. So this track generally starts like this. Hopefully you can still hear me. Hold on. Microphone hearing? Yes, I think you can still hear that. Hello, 1, 2, yeah. Okay, so I would then start with, I bring this bass sequence in, so this is just bringing the volume up. And these are, I think most of these are just samples, audio samples and loops taken from my original production. And then when I want to go into the next bit of the song, just move on to there, press that. And then that's going to bring the 303 in. Which if we just go into there, that is sequenced from the Deluge, and it's sending the MIDI out to the iPad. And then I've got these settings mapped to the cut off the resonance, envelope decay, the envelope amount, the accent and distortion. So I've got control of the parameters of the Pure Acid thing from here. So I don't have to go into any screens on the iPad. I've just got them all mapped on here. And then I've got volume controls for these three on here. So I've got a volume control on this one for channel 2, which is what the Pure Acid thing's on. Let's bring the other stuff back in. Then I can bring different elements in then on here. So basically I've got one kit here on the Deluge, which is a mixture of that's an audio loop from the original production, as is the bass. I took the original kick off and put that in there, and then I've got the internal 808 hi-hats, and then other loops going off here. So I can just gradually start to bring those in as I build the track. I've got other stuff that I can play on here. Okay, so I would gradually start to build stuff up. What I've also got set up on here says I've got that sound going in on there. I've got a ride cymbal here because I'll play that kind of. And so on. This one here, this pad is the where is it? It's the 909 snare from the Deluge, the internal 909 snare. But what I've done is I've turned the arpeggiator on, so when I press down, it just gives me a drum roll, so I can use that kind of like for building up fills. I've just got like a cymbal on the end, and so on. So while I'm doing this, I may as well I'll just play through this song and show you how I would do it. I have another scene then, a yellow scene, which is this one here, which hopefully, I don't know if you'll be able to see the colours online. Yeah, I think you should be able to. That is on mapped to this pad, so that like builds up into a that's like a breakdown section in the middle. So I'll play the track and yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, so on. So Rob's just asked, how do you map the buttons on the Arturia to launch Deluge clips? Right, dead simple, dead straightforward. This, obviously, once you've got your MIDI connection in, so the connections, which actually I didn't go through earlier, is I've got, because I'm powering the Deluge from the mains, and then I've got the MIDI, the USB connection from the Arturia going to the into the USB connection on the Deluge. So I've got like a little adapter which takes you into there, which I bought years ago and I never used until they did the update where you can use this as a MIDI host. So basically, let's just unmap these. Okay, so pad 1 here, I want to launch the blue. Okay, so you don't need to do it on both. All you would do is hold learn, press the blue pad button, and they will start to flash, and then just hit that, and you can see they, hopefully you can see they go white. So now when I press that, it will launch those two, which is actually not the way I want to do it. Let's just load it back in again. So let's just go through that again, just for the purposes of this. So when I press pad 1, what I want it to do is it that one? Yeah, when I press pad 1, I want it to go onto the yellow, no, sorry, the pink scene. So all I would do is hold learn, hold the pink one, hit the pad, and it flashes and it goes white. So now when I press that, hopefully you can see it's jumping down to there. So for this one, it wants to launch the blue. So I would hold the blue, hit that, and it's going to do those two automatically because they're in the blue section. So you can see I've now got, I can switch between those two. And then the third pad, if I remember rightly, is going to do that scene there. And then I also had one on this one where I want to be able to turn the 303 off and on. So they're going to launch scenes, and then for the 303, that's just going to basically mute that channel. So I would just map that one to there, and that can turn that one on and off. So that's basically how I do it. So hopefully that sort of makes some sense, Rob. Once you get your head around it, it's dead simple. And obviously the great thing with the mapping is it saves it per track, which I'll talk about a little bit when I'll do some stuff with the drums in a second. In fact, let's do that now. So let's say another track. So that's one way I would play. And for a track like that, it's going to be slightly different every time I play live. So there, I can make it as long or as short as I want, depending on how people are enjoying it, and I can bring different bits in and out, drop stuff out, and so on. Another way of doing it is that I will sort of drum over the top. Let me find. Hello, my brother's just joined the chat. Be kind. What else we got on here? I just found out a few days ago that one knob fader can learn more than. Yes, you can kind of like multi-map different things to different faders as well, which is cool. Right, I've got that many songs. I can't remember which number is which. Everybody get up. Right, so this is an example of one that I would drum on. So what I do for ones like this is, what keeps beeping at me? It's just an email. I basically take the original track and take the bits out of it that I'm going to play. So this track here on the Deluge is just. Okay, so that's just one long 3-4 minute basically sample that I export out of Ableton Live, and that will just play through from beginning to end. So these ones are always going to be, well, I say they're always going to be the same. I will drum slightly differently. And then on this track is, I've got all the drum sounds. That screen, hopefully you can see it a little bit more. So what I've done here is I've basically just mapped these to these pads on the drum kit. So that one there, and the way to do it is the same principle. You just hold, let's just get rid of that one so you can see. Hopefully that pad you can see is not now mapped. Do anything, I would hold learn, hold the pad that's kind of like the audition pad, hit that, and it's now mapped. So for playing something like this, it would go like this. Okay, and so on. You're welcome, Rob. Hope that made sense. And sorry, I just realised on. Let me just change the setting on here, cause bear with, so we can see the chat on there. Because in the moment, it looks like I'm not very popular on the chat. We don't want that. Let's see if this works. So hopefully this page will update in a second. Or it'll just stay blank. Christ knows. But anyway, doesn't matter. So yeah. So for some stuff I will play the drums. Others I will play like a bass line. So I've got a new track here which is going to be my next release, which is out early June, called Nothing You Can Do. There we go. I'm a little more popular now. Look, we've got the chat up on screen. So for this one, I'm actually playing the bass line. So all I did was when I exported the track from Ableton Live is I took the bass out. So the backing track, which is this, doesn't have the bass in it. I then exported a little sample file of the bass line and mapped it. To a couple of pads on here, so I can play the bass line, which would go like this. There's nothing you can do to take me away. There's nothing more to do to take me away. In fact, the love is gone, no more word to say. There's nothing more to do for you. Okay, so for a track like that, I would be playing the bass line. In that middle bit where the bass isn't playing, rather than me just standing on stage looking like a noob and not knowing what to do, I've got some other little samples. If I can remember where I put them all. Oh, it's there. Okay, so I'm going to be like triggering samples by hitting the pads for that. So what I try and do when I play live is have as much variety as I can. So it's interesting for me and it's interesting for somebody to watch. You know, I don't want to go and watch somebody just head down looking at a laptop. So that's why I don't play with a laptop. I just, like I say, just use this gear. Other ones I will play keyboard parts live. So for something like Kings, I will play the. I'll do on that screen. So I would play this on this bit.
Just smile if you're having fun tonight, and groove if you feel the push inside. Move your body non-stop, take a breath and fill your glass up and raise your hands up. It's time to blink and wink to the girl with the glamorous things. Go on, this ship won't sink. We feel like nightclub kings. We feel like nightclub kings. We feel like nightclub kings. We feel like nightclub kings.
And so on, and I will filter the stuff. One thing I am just sort of working on it's like transitions between songs, because I like when I play, I don't want to like play a song and stop, and I like it just to be a continual thing. So for example, like at the end of that one, what I do is I just kind of play a little bit. I'll kind of do this. I'll do a little set in a minute, and you can kind of watch what I do. Cheers, Andreas. So yeah, it's like a continual sort of thing of music. And one thing I'm working on at the moment is to almost like do it from a DJ kind of point of view, and I'm going to take some just like stems and 8-bar loops and have them just all on one project, so I can kind of go from song to song without any gaps. What I do as well with this one is sending out a control program change message to the synth on here. This is the one on channel 1, the synth one. So I've got that on a few songs where it will automatically change the patch for me on the iPad, which is pretty cool. So I don't have to really touch the iPad at all, because it's all either done automatically from program control messages or from just control from the Arturia. I'll do a little set for you for anybody who's interested, because I think I've covered everything. If anyone's got any questions, now's the time to ask, because I'm just going to go and play a load of songs for half an hour, and we'll see what happens. As I can't go out into the real world and do gigs. Or can I? Who knows after last night's announcement, for those people who live in the UK. Yeah, we haven't got a clue what we're supposed to be able to do. And go to work if you can, but don't go to work if you can't. But if you can, then go. But don't go on public transport, but walk. But don't walk if you can't walk. Yeah. Thanks, Boris, for confusing the hell out of everybody. Right, okay, I'll shut up talking. There's no more questions coming in at the moment. So I'll... yeah, let's play some music and stop jabbering on. Right. Bear with me, because a lot of these I've not done. I'll get the disclaimers in first that some of this might be crap, because I've not practiced for a while. We'll start with Kings, and I'll just play it, see what happens.
Just smile if you're having fun tonight, and groove if you feel the push inside. Move your body non-stop, take a breath and fill your glass up and raise your hands up. It's time to blink and wink to the girl with the glamorous things. Go on, this ship won't sink. We feel like nightclub kings. We feel like nightclub kings. We feel like nightclub kings. feel like nightclub kings.
Stop, take a breath and fill your glass up and raise your hands up. It's time to blink and wink to the girl with the glamorous things. Go on, this ship will sink. We feel like nightclub kings. Raise your hands up, your hands up, raise your hands up, hands up, hands up, hands up, hands up, hands up.
Disco beat.
Yes, Goya, the MX one has gone. Yeah, I sold that last year, unfortunately. I wish I'd kept it now. But anyway. Andreas, I'll answer your question while I'm just grooving that in the background. Yeah, how long does it take for me to make tunes like this? It varies. I'll carry on playing in a sec. Sometimes a couple of hours. Probably my best ones just kind of flow out within a couple of hours. Sometimes I'm fuffing about with them for a couple of weeks, and then I will leave it and I'll go back to it, and then kind of I don't know, keep it up again. But yeah, it varies. It depends on the song. What I will often do is structure-wise, if I hear a song I like, I will kind of use that as a bit of a template for the structure, because the structure is often the hardest thing to do. Getting like the first 8-bar loop is the easy bit. Structuring into a song is a lot of a... and yeah, I mean, to be honest, I will often sit in the studio and think, right, I'm going to do a song in the style of, I don't know, John Hopkins or whatever, and it still ends up sounding like me. So embrace the fact that it changes and it sounds like you, because, you know, that's what makes us unique. So I will carry on playing a few more tracks.
what you think that we think is cool.
but the feeling never fades away. And the reason I adore you is that you have freed my mind sky high. I'd like to thank you for moving me up. Can I please thank you for moving me up?
young. Every time I catch these, I just gotta hold on.
Cheers, Andreas. Thanks for watching. There we go. That was just me. Yeah, this was supposed to be just about me talking about my studio, which I did about an hour and a half ago, and then decided just to go into a massive long jam. And a bit of live practice whilst I was at it. That's me done, I think, for today. So thanks for everybody who's watched and commented and taken part. It's much appreciated that you give your time up to watch what I do and listen to what I do. And if you want to support me, you'll see this scrolling along the bottom here. If you want to support me on Patreon, you'll get some free stuff. And yeah, it all helps me to get more of this stuff, which is all good. So thanks for watching. Keep an eye out for more live streams. I'll certainly be doing a few more over the next week or two while we're all still stuck at home. And if anyone's got any kind of suggestions for stuff they would like me to do on a live stream, then leave some comments and I'll see what I can do. So thanks for watching. A few shout outs. Stoneware Andreas I think is gone. 7177 thanks. Inky, nice to see you again. J Messer, Goya, who else have we had on? Rob, my brother Stephen. He'd best still be watching. If he's not, there's big trouble. Yeah. So I'm gonna go and have a well-earned lie down and a rest, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.